I think that actually our big competitive advantage is being a founder-led business. So founder-led businesses have complete ownership and real urgency. You've got someone cracking the whip that's urgent and perpetually unsatisfied about how fast we're going, because you feel all the pressure of being a public company. And I think having that clear ownership, where software is very much an art form, where you can, an accountant's view, and accountants are great people, an accountant's view of for those large corporates might be, hey, let's go and get our software developed in the most cheapest place. Well, what we think is more important is having people that understand the vision and the mission we're doing, really empowered to do the best work of their lives. They'll write software faster, better, and more efficient than anyone else. So if you have that founder-led culture and enough capital to build great teams and do big things, we can do pretty magical stuff. I've really worked on our diversity for the last few years. We have an internal hard goal immediate of 40% females, which is hard in a tech company, but we're sort of 38, 39 now. And I've got my direct reports to about 50% female, and this is no compromise. They're the best people we could have, and just got another female director on the board, and hopefully another female one later in the year. So at my level, have really tried to lead by example, and then looking in parts of the business where we don't have that diversity, making sure that if I can do it, then everyone else should be able to as well. And it creates a very harmonious company that actually reflects what our customer base is. And I think you get a much more respectful environment if you have sort of balance in those teams. But we look for diversity, not just of sort of females, but diversity of thought, so different personality types and all that sort of stuff, and that works really well. So we would never compromise. We'd always hire the best person for the job, but we'd go looking where there's strong females, and our best leaders and some of our best leaders in the company, they're females. Surprise, Yeah, it's great. We're already a global company spread out. We'll go to where the best talent is. And, we're still all New Zealanders, and there'll always be a huge connection between Xero and this part of the world. What we are doing is investing further here, creating as many jobs as we can. And it's really interesting with all these sort of micro courses you can do online. We're taking this sort of continuous education process where we're trying to take all of our developers from being sort of traditional database type developers to really understanding machine learning and AI, which is the next big wave. And New Zealand is still a magical place where it has this great lifestyle and people want to be here. So and it's it's more cost effective for us to have people here than in San Francisco, say. So it's very logical. We'll always have a huge presence here, but we'll see over time. We're 10 years in now. What will Xero look like in 30 years? Well, it'll probably have a CEO somewhere else, but it'll still have the strong New Zealand connection. We know in this US political scene, it's very uncomfortable for us. We don't understand some of the decisions that are being made, but yet you look at the support scores. Like if you don't have a job and there's very few prospects of significant employment in your area, I mean, you're pretty pissed off. So I think we're seeing that playing through. So I think what are the lessons you take from a New Zealand point of view? Well, if you kind of lose the middle class, if there aren't opportunities for people, that's a real problem. So I feel a real urgency now to exploit the situation. We should be looking at, we tend to be very inwardly focused. If we want better schools and hospitals, all of us in business have to think about exporting, either supporting other exporters or building export businesses ourselves. And I think we think of exporting as logs and wine and protein. All the technology means that services companies can export as well. And some of the amazing things that we're seeing now is our accounting firms are actually exporting services, because we have global platforms like Xero, which allow them to work with customers in over 180 countries. And so when we talk to our accounting partners, we're like, not only do you have to be advising your small businesses on export strategies, and we'll help you with that, but what are your own export strategies? You can't just be sitting in Christchurch thinking your customers are just where I can see, where you've got a 60% labour arbitrage between here and just Melbourne and Sydney. So all of us need to be thinking about exporting, and anyone that's in business, how are you exporting? Because that's what contributes to smaller class sizes and shorter waiting queues at the hospital. So Peter was a huge endorsement for us in the US. You know, he's one of the most famous technology entrepreneurs, and you know, even now, you know, makes some pretty bold bets that tend to come off. And so having that endorsement was great. And I usually catch up with Peter once or twice a year, and he's, you know, always takes a contrarian view, which stretches you. You know, he's one of those people you really enjoy meeting because you work out, you know, thinking about things from a completely different point of view. So it doesn't mean we personally support his politics. It's really interesting and all that sort of stuff. But he's been a huge supporter. You know, he invested not just in us, but a bunch of other New Zealand companies until we ran into a supply problem. And then that investment team did a few things in Australia and does quite a lot in the UK around the Xero community as well. So back at the time, you know, we were all very happy that Peter was coming in. There wasn't even a big deal about him, you know, getting a passport. And I do understand from this equality value that's, you know, it's a good manifestation. We think it's unfair that somebody could effectively come in, do some investment and get a passport. But practically, you know, these people are net contributors from day one. And why wouldn't we be having people in here that we can, you know, use their networks and they invest and spend here? And because we have this really fair tax system, if you come in and spend a few $1 million of a house, you're writing out a cheque for hundreds of thousands for GST. You know, you buy a $200,000 car to sit here in a garage, just a $30,000 cheque straight away. So I think we have a very clean system and we should be encouraging them. You know, my joke was, you know, give me a 10-pack of passports I can hand out when I'm travelling. So if we're down, I'm throwing up in the corner. It's like, you know, for the whole time that it's down. So, but that was a pretty unexpected bug. It was, you know, all of the storage for Amazon. So pretty much everyone who was doing business software was down. But we learned a bit from it. So we wouldn't have thought that was a major risk surface. But there's some things we can do. So with all these things, that'll probably never happen again. But we can still do a little bit more for that scenario. So we spend a huge amount of money on resiliency, but you know, then you find something like that comes which has a very, very low probability, but we'll cover that risk. So we know that going forward. It's still so much more uptime compared to running a server underneath your desk that you sort of, you know, kick the cord out and then you've got to get somebody 2 days later to come in and rebuild all the records. So if anything goes wrong, but we are still at the very early stages of the internet and business internet. But already, like in the last 12 months, and the reason we had to move to AWS, we processed $1.2 trillion of transactions. I don't think New Zealanders understand that. You know, we touched, even just in New Zealand, our customers touched 2.6 million people on the platform. So pretty much every business person in New Zealand gets an invoice from Xero or sends a bill into a customer on Xero. So we've just done the kind of boring parts, which is building the mandatory feature set to do the functionality, but now we can start doing all of the network effects. And the reason we had to move to AWS is now we have that $1.2 trillion of transactions, which grows massively every year. We wanted to use some of the commodity investments in AI so that we can do some magical things. And to do that, rather than sort of buying our own servers, we can just turn that functionality on because it's sitting there in the Amazon cloud. So we saw this 2 years ago and it was a frightening thing. Hey, we're going to slow down development of features to completely re-platform the business. So again, I think we had the courage to do that, and this is like, you know, flying the passenger jet and changing the engines in mid-air because everyone expects it to keep going. But now we're on that platform, we can build some magical experiences. So what we're focused on now is that small businesses will stop doing accounting. They'll just take photos of receipts or their bill from Vodafone or Telecom or Auckland Watercare or Warehouse Stationery just flows straight through into their accounting software, gets automatically categorised, and then the accountants and bookkeepers can really work on growth strategies for those businesses. So the amount of innovation we'll see over the next 2 or 3 years will be much more than we've seen in the last 10. We don't seem to have a strategy because nothing changed in the last 6 months when the world changed. So, you know, one of our big messages is, you know, we'd love to work alongside government to say, what are the 10 things we should be doing? You know, what's our electric vehicle strategy, which is a massive opportunity? Payment networks is, you know, we're losing that to Visa and MasterCard offshore. So are we going to do controlled demolition of our FPOS network or actually provide just amazing payment technology? You know, what are we doing with international connectivity? So there's some private sector stuff that's going on, which will make a big difference. It's awesome. We've done the UFB project that's allowed us to put an office in Hawke's Bay. So there's probably 10 big projects that we've invested. Xero, people don't really understand. We've invested almost $1 billion in our platform. Like the amount of R&D we're doing, very few New Zealand companies done anything near that. But we've had 600 million of revenue so far, and we've still got 100 million plus in the bank. So for the first time, and you look at the amount of money we spend and other New Zealand companies are spending, if we're more coordinated, we can hit the 10 big strategies that we need to do. We should be the best business to government. I mean, we're already really good at it. I ordered a passport the other day and I had it delivered in Hawke's Bay in under 24 hours. So we're already leading in some things, but we should be, the best payments network. We should be, we should have the best electric vehicle strategy, because we know that VW and Audi are having to spend billions of dollars. They're bringing down R&D investment, and long, skinny countries, hard for cell phone networks, but it's awesome for electrification. And we're 90% plus renewables already, so why aren't we the leader in this big change that's going on? And some other really exciting projects, water, food, all those good things.